Jimin accidentally reads Jungkook's hidden love letter inside a black hoodie, unraveling secrets, fear, and a love that could destroy everything. "Don't open that." The words came too late. Jimin's fingers were already inside the pocket of the black hoodie, brushing against folded paper warm from Jungkook's body heat, the backstage lights flickering like a warning overhead. The bass from the arena outside thudded through the walls, shaking the metal racks of costumes, rattling the thin line between curiosity and betrayal. He looked up. Jungkook stood in the doorway of the dressing room, breath uneven, eyes darker than the hoodie he had just taken off. There was sweat at his temples, glitter still clinging to his collarbone from rehearsal, and something else, fear, real fear, the kind Jungkook never showed on stage. "Hyung," Jungkook said again, softer this time, "please." But Jimin had already unfolded the letter. The paper trembled in his hands, not because of the bass vibrating through the floor, but because of the first line written in slanted, impatient handwriting he knew too well. "If loving you means losing everything, I am already prepared to watch it burn." The room seemed to shrink. Jimin's throat tightened as his eyes scanned further. The words were raw, unedited, nothing like the careful answers they gave in interviews. They were desperate, confessional, fragile. "I pretend I'm fearless, but I'm terrified you'll look at me one day and realize I'm the mistake." A sharp inhale cut through the silence. Jungkook stepped forward, closing the distance in 3 strides, his hand reaching out but stopping short of touching the letter. He never forced, he never demanded. That was his habit, pull back before he could be pushed away. "You weren't supposed to see that," Jungkook said. "Then why hide it in something you know I steal all the time?" Jimin shot back, though his voice lacked its usual playful lilt. It came out strained, almost wounded. "Because he did steal Jungkook's hoodies, the black one most of all. It smelled like fabric softener and faint cologne, like late nights in the studio and the warmth of someone who never learned how to sleep properly. Jimin wore it when he felt anxious, when the noise got too loud, when his thoughts turned cruel." Jungkook let out a hollow laugh. "I didn't think you'd check the pocket." "You wrote my name," Jimin's voice dropped to a whisper, over and over. There it was in the margins, Jimin, Jimin, Jimin. As if Jungkook had been testing how it felt to claim him on paper. Outside, the crowd roared. Their cue would come in minutes. Inside, the world tilted. Jimin folded the letter carefully, as if it was something sacred instead of something explosive. He stepped closer until they were only inches apart, close enough to feel the heat radiating from Jungkook's skin, close enough to notice the faint tremor in his jaw. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jimin asked. Jungkook's eyes flickered down, then back up, vulnerability laid bare. "Because you love the stage more than anything, because we have everything right now, because one rumor could ruin it, because I don't want to be the reason you lose your smile." The confession hit harder than the music outside. Jimin had built himself on discipline, on control, on the constant, suffocating need to be perfect. He carried his own secrets like polished trophies, insecurities about his voice, about being enough, about always feeling like he had to fight to stand out. And now, this letter cracked something open he had locked away for years. "You think you're a mistake," Jimin said, almost angrily. "You think loving me would ruin me." "I think loving you would expose me," Jungkook replied, "and I don't know if I'm strong enough to survive that." Silence fell between them, heavy and electric. Jimin remembered the first time Jungkook clung to him as a trainee, barely 15, overwhelmed and homesick. He remembered the nights they stayed up whispering about fears neither would admit in daylight. He remembered the way Jungkook always looked for him in a crowded room first. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't reckless. It had been growing quietly, like fire under ash. A knock pounded on the door, 2 minutes. Jimin didn't move. He reached forward and grabbed Jungkook's wrist, firm enough to stop him from retreating. Jungkook stilled, breath catching. "You don't get to decide what ruins me," Jimin said, "and you don't get to decide what I'm strong enough to handle." The tension between them snapped, not into chaos, but into clarity. Jungkook searched his face, as if trying to find doubt. Instead, he found something steady. Terrified, yes, but steady. "What are you saying?" Jungkook asked. Jimin took the letter and slid it back into the hoodie pocket, pressing it against Jungkook's chest. His palm lingered there, over the frantic heartbeat beneath. "I'm saying," Jimin whispered, "you should have given it to me." The arena lights dimmed. The intro VCR began to play on the massive screens outside. They walked out together, shoulders brushing, the black hoodie slung over Jungkook's arm like an ordinary piece of fabric instead of a detonator. On stage they were flawless, smiles bright, movements sharp, chemistry electric in a way fans would call performance. But something had shifted. Every glance lasted half a second longer, every touch burned hotter. And when Jungkook sang the bridge, his eyes found Jimin, unguarded, almost pleading. Jimin didn't look away. After the show, the hallway was chaos, staff shouting, cameras flashing, managers herding them toward waiting vans. The air smelled of sweat and metal and adrenaline. Jungkook hung back. Jimin noticed. In the dim corridor, away from most of the noise, Jungkook finally spoke. "If this gets out." "It won't," Jimin cut in, "not unless we let fear control us." "You don't know that." "No," Jimin admitted, "I don't, but I know I'm tired of pretending we're just gravity and coincidence." Jungkook's composure cracked. "Hyung, if we choose this, there's no halfway." Jimin stepped closer again, drawn by instinct stronger than caution. "Then don't give me halfway." For a moment, the world narrowed to breath and heartbeat. Jungkook's hand lifted, hesitated, then cupped Jimin's face. It was tentative, almost reverent, as if he were touching something breakable. "You deserve something simple," Jungkook murmured. Jimin let out a shaky laugh. "Since when has my life ever been simple?" Their foreheads rested together, hidden in shadow. This wasn't the dramatic explosion Jimin had imagined love would be. It was quieter, more dangerous, a choice made in the space between heartbeats. The black hoodie slipped from Jungkook's arm and fell to the floor. Jimin picked it up, brushing invisible dust from the fabric. He folded it neatly and placed it back in Jungkook's hands. "Next time," he said softly, "don't hide your heart in a pocket." Jungkook's lips curved, small but certain. "Next time, I'll hand it to you." The future remained uncertain, the industry unforgiving, the risks undeniable. But for the first time, neither of them felt alone in the fear. The hoodie was no longer a shield or a hiding place. It was a promise. The headline exploded across Jimin's phone before the sun had fully risen. Anonymous source claims idol duo's relationship crosses the line. The screen glowed cold blue in the dark dorm room, and for a second he thought he was still dreaming. His pulse began to pound harder with every line he read. Blurry photos. A backstage hallway, Jungkook's hand hovering too close to his face, a moment frozen and twisted into something scandalous. From the other side of the room, Jungkook's voice came out low and sharp. "You saw it too." It wasn't a question. Jimin sat up slowly, the sheets falling from his shoulders. The air felt heavy, like it carried static before a storm. "They're calling it inappropriate," he said, his jaw tightening. "They're saying we're hiding something." Jungkook let out a bitter laugh from where he stood near the window, hoodie pulled over his head despite the early heat. The same black hoodie, the same pocket. "They're not wrong," Jungkook muttered. Jimin looked up at him immediately. "Don't." "What, you want me to pretend?" Jungkook turned, eyes blazing. "We are hiding something." The words landed between them like a match, dropped in gasoline. Jimin stood, crossing the room in quick strides. "We're protecting ourselves." "From what?" Jungkook shot back. "From the truth." "From losing everything," Jimin's voice cracked louder than he intended. "From contracts being ripped apart, from fans turning their backs, from becoming the scandal instead of the music." Silence swallowed the space. Jungkook's breathing was uneven, I don't care about the headlines. I do, Jimin said immediately, then softened. I care because they'll use them to hurt you. There it was, the fear neither of them wanted to name. A sharp knock hit the door. Their manager didn't wait for permission to enter. His face said enough. You've both seen it, he said flatly. Neither answered. There's a meeting in an hour. The company wants statements drafted, separate ones. Jimin's stomach dropped, separate. To deny speculation, the manager replied carefully, to emphasize brotherhood, professional boundaries. Jungkook's hands curled into fists inside his sleeves. So we lie. The manager's expression hardened. You survive. After he left, the room felt smaller. Jimin ran a hand through his hair, packing. His thoughts spiraled fast, colliding with memories of the letter, of that fragile promise in the hallway. It had felt brave then, intimate, untouchable. Now it felt exposed. Jungkook watched him, something wounded flickering in his gaze. If you want to deny it, he said quietly, I'll go along with it. Jimin stopped packing. That's not what I want. Then what do you want? Jungkook demanded, stepping forward. Because I'm tired of hiding in plain sight. I'm tired of pretending that every time I look at you, it's just for the cameras. His voice shook, not with weakness, but with restrained emotion. You think this is easy for me? Jimin snapped back. You think I don't wake up every day calculating how close is too close, how long is too long? I'm terrified all the time. Jungkook's anger faltered. Of me. Of losing you, Jimin whispered. The confession drained the heat from the argument. For a long moment, neither spoke. Outside, traffic hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a door slammed. Jungkook stepped closer, close enough that Jimin could see the exhaustion lining his features. If we deny it, Jungkook said slowly, they'll keep digging. If we fight it, they'll dig harder. There's no clean way out. Jimin swallowed, I know. And if the company forces distance, Jungkook pressed, separate schedules, separate interviews. The possibility hit like a punch. Jimin forced himself to meet Jungkook's eyes. Then, we endure it. Jungkook's jaw tightened. You always endure. You always sacrifice yourself quietly. And you do, Jimin shot back. A flash of something dangerous crossed Jungkook's face. Maybe I'm done sacrificing. The words hung heavy. Jimin felt something shift, something precarious. What are you saying? I'm saying, Jungkook replied, voice low and steady now, if they make you deny us, I won't. The room went still. You can't just, Jimin started. Watch me. The tension between them wasn't just fear anymore. It was defiance. It was two people standing on opposite edges of a cliff, deciding whether to jump. Jimin grabbed Jungkook's wrist again, like he had backstage. Don't make a decision out of anger. This isn't anger, Jungkook said. It's exhaustion. Their manager's words echoed in Jimin's mind, separate statements. He imagined standing in front of cameras, smiling softly, saying there was nothing there. Imagined Jungkook watching from somewhere else, knowing it was a lie. The thought made his chest ache. You once told me not to give you halfway, Jungkook said quietly, so don't give me halfway now. Jimin's breath trembled. The meeting room at the company building felt colder than usual. Executives lined one side of the table. Their leader sat at the head, fingers steepled, expression unreadable. We need clarity, the executive said. The narrative must be controlled immediately. Jimin kept his back straight. Jungkook sat beside him, silent but coiled tight. You will both release statements emphasizing friendship, the executive continued. Physical familiarity is common among close colleagues, nothing more. And if we refuse, Jungkook asked calmly. Several heads snapped toward him. The executive's gaze sharpened. Refusal is not an option. Jimin felt the heat radiating from Jungkook's side. He knew that tension. It meant Jungkook was seconds from saying something irreversible. Jimin spoke first. We'll review the statements. The executive nodded. Good, we expect cooperation. When the meeting ended, Jungkook walked out ahead, pushing through the glass doors with more force than necessary. Jimin caught up to him in the empty stairwell. You were going to challenge them. They don't own my heart, Jungkook shot back. They own our contracts. Jungkook turned sharply. So that's it, we bow our heads and smile. Jimin's frustration flared. I'm trying to protect what we have. And I'm trying to protect who we are. The words echoed up the concrete walls. For a second, it felt like they were fighting each other instead of the world. Jimin's voice dropped. If we self-destruct, they win. Jungkook stared at him, breathing hard. And if we erase ourselves, do we win? The question sliced deep. Jimin stepped closer, lowering his voice to something raw and unguarded. I don't want to erase us. I need time. Jungkook's shoulders sagged slightly. Time for what? For the world to stop feeling like it's waiting to punish us. Silence fell again, but this time it was heavier with understanding than anger. Jungkook reached up slowly, tugging the hood down from his head. His hair fell into his eyes. He looked younger like that, more vulnerable. I meant every word in that letter, he said. I know. I'm not ashamed. Jimin's throat tightened. Neither am I. The admission felt like stepping into fire willingly. Jungkook's hand hovered near Jimin, hesitant in the open stairwell. Whatever we choose, he said quietly, I don't want fear making the choice for us. Jimin intertwined their fingers for a brief, dangerous second before letting go. Then we choose carefully, together. Outside, cameras were already gathering near the building entrance. The story had grown overnight, speculation multiplying like sparks in dry grass. They would have to step out soon. Side by side. Not as a scandal. Not as a denial. But as two people who understood that love, once named, could never fully return to silence. And for the first time since the headline flashed across his screen, Jimin felt something steadier than panic rising in his chest. Resolve.
The cameras started flashing before the doors even opened. The sound was relentless, shutters snapping like gunfire, reporters shouting overlapping questions that collided into a chaotic roar. The glass entrance of the company building reflected Jimin's pale face back at him for a split second before security pushed the doors wide. Are the rumors true? Is there more than friendship between you? Did the company force a statement? The air outside smelled like rain on concrete and overheated equipment. It felt suffocating. Jimin stepped forward first, expression carefully composed, shoulders squared with practiced elegance. Jungkook walked half a step behind him, jaw tight, eyes sharp and unreadable. The distance between them was deliberate, painful, necessary. A microphone was thrust too close to Jimin's mouth. Jimin, are you in a romantic relationship with Jungkook? The world seemed to narrow to that single question. Jimin forced a polite smile, the kind he had perfected over years. We are colleagues who care deeply about each other. Please don't misunderstand natural closeness. The words tasted like ash. Beside him, Jungkook didn't speak. But he didn't smile either. They moved forward again, security clearing a path, the crowd surging. Another voice rose above the chaos. Then why were you seen holding his face backstage? Jungkook stopped walking. Jimin felt it instantly, the shift in energy. He turned his head slightly, eyes warning. Don't. Jungkook's gaze flickered to him, something turbulent and unrestrained burning there. Because I wanted to, Jungkook said. The words weren't loud, but they carried. The reporters froze for half a second before the frenzy doubled. Wanted to how? In what way? Are you confirming the rumors? Jimin's heart slammed violently against his ribs. He stepped closer to Jungkook, low voice barely audible under the noise. This isn't the place. Jungkook didn't look away from the crowd. They're going to twist it anyway. Jungkook, Jimin hissed. A reporter pushed forward again. Are you denying romantic involvement? Silence stretched. Rain began to fall, light at first, then heavier, droplets darkening Jungkook's hoodie, clinging to Jimin's hair. Jungkook finally spoke again, voice steady but electric. I'm saying people read too much into what they don't understand. It wasn't a denial. It wasn't a confirmation. It was gasoline. Security urged them into the waiting van. Doors slammed shut. The noise outside became muffled chaos. Inside, the tension exploded. What was that? Jimin demanded, his composure cracking the second the van pulled away. Jungkook leaned back against the seat, chest rising and falling hard. I didn't lie. You didn't clarify either. Why should I? Jungkook shot back. Why do we owe them explanations about how we look at each other? Because this isn't just about us. Jimin's voice shook, anger and fear tangling together. There are contracts, endorsements, people whose jobs depend on stability. And what about us? Jungkook's voice dropped dangerously low. Do we just keep shrinking so everyone else stays comfortable? The rain streaked down the van windows, blurring the city into gray smears. Jimin ran both hands through his damp hair. You think I want to shrink? You think I enjoy pretending? Jungkook leaned forward suddenly, closing the space between them, then stopped pretending. The challenge hung heavy. Jimin's breath caught. And do what? Announce it. Watch everything we built crumble. Maybe it won't, Jungkook said, though doubt flickered behind his defiance. Maybe people are more ready than you think. Or maybe they're not, Jimin countered sharply, and we become a cautionary tale. Silence swallowed the rest of the argument. When they arrived at the dorm, the company had already issued a brief statement online, neutral, carefully worded, emphasizing teamwork and brotherhood. Jimin read it 3 times. Jungkook didn't bother. Instead, he walked straight to his room, the door closing with quiet finality. Hours passed. The rain didn't stop. By evening, social media had split into factions, supporters, critics, conspiracy theorists dissecting every past interaction like forensic evidence. Old clips resurfaced, slow-motion edits, analyzing touches, glances, lyrics. Jimin sat alone in the living room, the glow of his phone illuminating tired eyes. He wasn't reading hate. He was reading confusion, passion, curiosity, people arguing over something deeply personal as if it were public property. A door creaked open. Jungkook stood there, no hoodie this time. Just a plain white shirt, damp hair falling into his eyes. He looked calmer, but the calm felt fragile. I didn't mean to make it worse, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin looked up. You didn't. Jungkook stepped closer. You're angry. I'm scared, Jimin corrected. Jungkook knelt in front of him, eye level now. Of me. Of losing control, Jimin admitted. My whole life I've controlled the narrative, my image, my reactions. Today felt like standing on stage without choreography. Jungkook's lips twitched faintly. You dance best when you improvise. This isn't choreography, Jimin murmured. It's our lives. A long pause settled between them. Then Jungkook did something reckless. He reached forward and took Jimin's hand openly, deliberately, as if daring the world, even though only dim lamplight witnessed it. I don't regret what I said, Jungkook whispered. I regret that you look terrified. Jimin's eyes softened. I wasn't terrified of you. Then what? Jimin hesitated. Of how much I care, he confessed. The honesty stripped the room bare. Jungkook's grip tightened slightly. You think I don't feel that too? I know you do. That's what makes it dangerous. Jungkook leaned closer, their foreheads almost touching again, echoing that backstage moment that felt like a lifetime ago. Maybe love isn't meant to feel safe, Jungkook said. Maybe it's meant to feel like this. Like what? like standing in the rain with no umbrella and deciding you don't care if you get soaked. Jimin let out a quiet, shaky laugh. You always talk like you're invincible. I'm not, Jungkook admitted softly. I'm just tired of being careful. The vulnerability in his voice cut deeper than any headline. Jimin reached up, brushing wet strands of hair from Jungkook's forehead. If we do this, he said slowly, we do it strategically, not impulsively. Jungkook studied him. You already have a plan. Not yet, Jimin said, but I will. A notification buzzed sharply on the table. Both of them glanced down. A new article. Leaked audio from an anonymous staff member claiming there was tension behind the scenes, suggesting favoritism, suggesting conflict within the group. Jimin's stomach twisted. They're escalating, Jungkook muttered. This isn't just about us anymore, Jimin said quietly. They're trying to fracture everything. Jungkook's expression darkened. Then we don't let them. Jimin looked at him carefully. That means no more impulsive comments. A beat. Jungkook sighed, fine. And no more walking half a step behind me like you're bracing for impact. Jungkook's eyes flickered with surprise. If we're going to face this, Jimin continued, voice steadying, we face it side by side, not hiding, not provoking, just steady. Jungkook searched his face, then nodded slowly, side by side. The rain finally began to ease, the steady drumming against the windows softening to a faint whisper. Outside, the world was still loud, still dissecting, still hungry. Inside, something fragile but resolute was forming. Not rebellion, not surrender. A decision to move forward, without letting fear dictate every breath. Jimin squeezed Jungkook's hand once before letting go. Tomorrow, he said quietly, we start taking back the narrative. Jungkook's gaze sharpened with renewed fire. Together. Together. The word lingered in the dim room, heavier and more powerful than any headline. And for the first time since the storm began, Jimin felt the chaos outside lose just a fraction of its power over what beat fiercely and unapologetically between them. The cameras started flashing before the doors even opened. The sound was relentless, shutters snapping like gunfire, reporters shouting overlapping questions that collided into a chaotic roar. The glass entrance of the company building reflected Jimin's pale face back at him for a split second before security pushed the doors wide. Are the rumors true? Is there more than friendship between you? Did the company force a statement? The air outside smelled like rain on concrete and overheated equipment. It felt suffocating. Jimin stepped forward first, expression carefully composed, shoulders squared with practiced elegance. Jungkook walked half a step behind him, jaw tight, eyes sharp and unreadable. The distance between them was deliberate, painful, necessary. A microphone was thrust too close to Jimin's mouth. Jimin, are you in a romantic relationship with Jungkook? The world seemed to narrow to that single question. Jimin forced a polite smile, the kind he had perfected over years. We are colleagues who care deeply about each other. Please don't misunderstand natural closeness. The words tasted like ash. Beside him, Jungkook didn't speak. But he didn't smile either. They moved forward again, security clearing a path, the crowd surging. Another voice rose above the chaos. Then why were you seen holding his face backstage? Jungkook stopped walking. Jimin felt it instantly, the shift in energy. He turned his head slightly, eyes warning. Don't. Jungkook's gaze flickered to him, something turbulent and unrestrained burning there. Because I wanted to, Jungkook said. The words weren't loud, but they carried. The reporters froze for half a second before the frenzy doubled. Wanted to how? In what way? Are you confirming the rumors? Jimin's heart slammed violently against his ribs. He stepped closer to Jungkook, low voice barely audible under the noise. This isn't the place. Jungkook didn't look away from the crowd. They're going to twist it anyway. Jungkook, Jimin hissed. A reporter pushed forward again. Are you denying romantic involvement? Silence stretched. Rain began to fall, light at first, then heavier, droplets darkening Jungkook's hoodie, clinging to Jimin's hair. Jungkook finally spoke again, voice steady but electric. I'm saying people read too much into what they don't understand. It wasn't a denial. It wasn't a confirmation. It was gasoline. Security urged them into the waiting van. Doors slammed shut. The noise outside became muffled chaos. Inside, the tension exploded. What was that? Jimin demanded, his composure cracking the second the van pulled away. Jungkook leaned back against the seat, chest rising and falling hard. I didn't lie. You didn't clarify either. Why should I? Jungkook shot back. Why do we owe them explanations about how we look at each other? Because this isn't just about us. Jimin's voice shook, anger and fear tangling together. There are contracts, endorsements,